You're listening to Keeping Up with the Knights, a podcast for the faculty and staff at Steele High School, allowing them to connect outside of the classroom. Teacher, coach, mentor, and speaker Michael Herrera, a past District Teacher of the Year, will sit down with fellow teachers and bring their stories to life. Sit back, relax, and enjoy these stories as they unfold on this episode of Keeping Up with the Knights.
Today I had the pleasure of sitting down with Jay Butler, an English teacher of the last 8 years at Steele High School. Jay has also been coaching the sidelines for our Steele Knights football team, as well as the Men of Steele on the basketball court. Jay has an insightful outlook on life and can often be found having serious conversations, but conversations of laughter as well. He's always willing to help someone and make this a better place. Please welcome my friend Jay Butler to episode 10 of Keeping Up with the Knights. All right, welcome back to Keeping Up with the Knights. I had the pleasure of sitting down with my man, Coach Jay Butler. Man, he's been my boy. He coaches basketball here at Steele High School. But Coach, I just appreciate you taking some time out of your day, especially on a Thursday, to talk with me. But I'm going to start off by asking you 5 questions, and then you'll shoot 5 back at me, and we'll go from there. So you ready?
I'm ready, man.
All right, man. Let's go. Question number 1. What is something that no one really knows about you?
That's tough. I feel like I talk so much that everybody knows everything about me.
Yeah, but a lot of times people know you in the coach's office, or I know you, but to the person who's a brand new teacher here on campus, they may not know that. So feel free to share that here as well.
Let's see. I passed my principal cert and have my master's in education.
There you go.
That probably academically wise, maybe someone doesn't know about me. I would say the other thing is, well, the people that really know me, but somebody just walking around may not know that I grew up in the country and I'm a country music fan.
There you go. And we're going to actually come up to that in just a second. All right. So if you were not a teacher and a coach, what other profession would you be in?
I probably would be in the business of some aspect. Before I got into teaching, I worked at HEB. I was a manager within the stores. I think I do well in that aspect. So maybe there. Like
a corporate kind of job?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Question number 3, if you could go back in time and high five yourself for something positive that you did, or just something that you would go back and give yourself a high five for, what would you go back in time and do that for?
Okay, this has to be like a young person, or is this like adult? Doesn't matter.
Just any time in your past, what would you go back and high five yourself for?
Let me think here. You know what I high five myself for? And it seems like a little thing, but it's so weird that I just talked to this friend not too long ago. And we still bring it up. And there was a time where we were playing basketball in 9th grade and had this guy, we called him Dream, because he loved Akeem Olajuwon. And he had got like a C or D as his final grade or whatnot. And his parents were very, very strict, and they were going to take him out of basketball because of it. And I can remember like, hey, man, well, let's go talk to the teacher. Like, what can we do? And he was like, what do you mean go talk to the teacher? I was like, well, all they can say is no, like, let's at least go ask, like, let's try. And so we went to the teacher, and I gave my spiel first, and he gave his spiel, and what could he do? And like every teacher knows, like, hey, what can I do right now? The last day of whatever. And it just so happens that he had an easy extra credit thing he could have done that took him no time, and he got it. He took it from whatever it was to a B, right? And him getting the B allowed him to play. But I can just remember him for the rest of the year, like, and just throughout the year, just always saying, man, if you ever need anything, like, I got your back. Like, I never would imagine that just going up and talking to them would have meant something. And so, like, a friend for life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
On a simple moment.
Yeah. So you paved the way for him.
Yeah, a little bit.
I got you. All right. Question number 4. If you were being announced in the starting lineup, whether it's football, basketball, whatever, in professional sports,
What theme song is playing when you walk out onto that court or onto that field?
Notorious B.I.G. It's gotta be. It's gotta be. All the ladies in the
place. All right. And so my last question, I think you already alluded to that, is what was the last concert you went to?
John Wolfe.
All right. Not what I thought, man. I thought you were going to say Chris Stapleton. So you went to John Wolfe. All right.
Yeah. It was like a small, secluded, not everybody could go. And it was a John Wolfe, Clay Hollis out in, was it Fright? I don't even know how to say it, in New Braunfels. Fright Hype, I don't know.
Yeah. I got you. All right. Well, those are my 5 questions, man. Your turn. Shoot away.
All right, here we go. First one. Hey, who are the NBA champions? And when you figure that out, tell me who your favorite Laker is.
Oh, man. All right. Well, the San Antonio Spurs did win the NBA championship.
Current champions.
Okay. Yes, the Lakers won, Butler. The Lakers won.
Thank you.
The Lakers won. Favorite Laker of all time, man. There's just too many to pick from, man. I'm not a Laker fan, but I'm a fan of, Magic, Kobe, those guys. But, so it'd probably have to be one of those 2 guys for sure.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that. Number 2, what are your parents most proud of you for?
The one that rings a bell when you asked that question, first thing that popped in my mind was back in 2016 when I won District Teacher of the Year. And I hate saying that one, when I was privileged and honored to receive the award of District Teacher of the Year. And I was able to take my mom to that Commitment to Excellence Awards banquet that they have there in Shirts. And, I just saw it in her eyes and she's crying and she's happy. I mean, I knew I got Teacher of the Year here at Steele High School, but she didn't know that I was going to be honored. And I didn't know that District Teacher of the Year. But, just hearing those words from your mom, right, or your dad in that matter, I'm proud of you, son, and all that kind of stuff. So hearing those words from her definitely resonate with me. My dad, I think it's actually doing stuff like this, podcast stuff. He's actually writing a book called Skunk Alpha, and it's a historical book about his experiences in Vietnam. He's already finished a book, but he's kind of venturing into like speaking about his book and promoting his book. And so when he hears me go out and talk to professional developments in schools and districts and summer, workshops and whatnot, he's kind of like, man, I wish I had like the presence that you do. And I'm like, Dad, I coach, I'm used to talking in front of people all the time. So I think he likes the fact of me kind of getting into this public speaking realm. So that's what I would say about either one of those.
Okay, cool deal. Where are we at? Number 3 has 2 parts, but you'll get it. What scares you as a father of a boy, and what scares you as a father of a girl?
What's kind of crazy because I'm processing what you said right there, and the first thing for my son, is he doesn't see danger in front of him. He's at that age where he's jumping off the couches, and as a parent, you just see like all the corners and edges of the furniture and this and that and like what could happen, but the kid's got no fear, man. He's doing front flips off the couches and stuff. But my daughter's the one who's like, that girl's nuts, man. She has no fear whatsoever. But my fear for my daughter is more futuristic, right? Like I need to make sure my that's my baby girl. Like I'm sorry for any boy that ever even thinks about dating her when she gets to that age, but that's my fear for her is I don't know if it's so much a fear for her as it is a fear for me and Courtney, making sure that we do the right thing as parents to, embody relationships and all that kind of stuff. So there you go.
All right. Number 4, when you are gone, what will your friends, players, colleagues, and family say about you?
Man, you got to go that way, huh? Going dark on me, Jay. I would hope in the end, what would be said about me is that I left a legacy behind of, being a mentor, being a good father, being a good husband, being a good person, being able to relate to people. And just passing not a financial legacy, not a coaching none of that stuff. It's going to be more about what I did when I was here on this earth and how I impacted others that were around me.
Okay, good one. And the last one, this will get you some brownie points right here, right? So I mean, that was a good one. When did you know Courtney was the one?
Man, it'd be interesting if you flipped it on me and said, how did she know? Because the first day that we crossed eyes, she went home and told her roommates. I don't know if I've told you this story, but she went home that day and told her volleyball roommates that she just met her husband. We didn't officially start dating until about 6 months after that. And so I would have to say that the day that I walked up to her in the weight room at Texas Tech, and she was wearing her volleyball shirt and all. I mean, volleyball just kind of had me right there, man. I think it was probably just a day that I had the guts to go talk to her and, hit on her or talk to her or whatever. So, because after that, it was all over, man. 6 months we were dating, 6 months we got engaged, and then 6 months we were married. So it happened fast. Yeah, absolutely, man.
All right, then.
All right, so there's your 5, man. So let's get into this. I know you, and a lot of people know you, Jay, but not a lot of people know kind of like your story. So if you will, just kind of start off by sharing with us, where you grew up. What was your childhood like, maybe up until about the high school time frame?
Born here in San Antonio, but very early on, probably 1 or 2, if that early. Back and forth to Karn City, Texas, which is about a small town, probably about an hour south of here. My dad's side of the family stayed there, and my mom's side stayed here in San Antonio. And so we would move back and forth probably about 3 or 4 times. I finally ended up in high school. I came back to San Antonio and went to Judson. I was super excited to leave Karn City because, as a kid, I'd been enough in the city to know that there's a big world out there, but I did like the hometown, style and comfort and, Mayberry feel of being in a country town. But I was excited to get to the city, and my mind was blown to be able to go to a school like Judson. That was like, there was as many kids at Judson as there were in the hometown that I was living. So that was just, 2 campuses. So I was just totally stoked. And then I realized how good I wasn't. As compared to all the athletes. My little town was all right. I got to Judson. You get second in line, third in line. But no, as far as like traveling the world, I haven't done that. But I just, from San Antonio to a small country town, that's been my story.
Okay. And so what schools did you go to growing up?
Elementary, I went to Oak Grove Elementary, which is right down the street from where you went to high school, right?
Yep.
Well, I could go back before that. I was in Head Start in Karn City, and my grandmother was my teacher.
Wow, I didn't know that.
A different experience. Yeah, she taught for 35 years.
Wow.
And so then came my first part of middle school. I went to Garner Middle School, where most people don't know Coach Leach was a student teacher when I was at Garner Middle School. Put that out there. Sorry, Leach. And then the other half, I was in Karn City for a middle school, and then came back to Converse or San Antonio to go to Judson.
Okay.
So that's kind of my path there.
I got you. So, all right, so let's fast forward. So then, you went and you graduated from Judson?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then where did you go to college?
I went to UTSA, but, I originally, when I first got out of high school, by that time, by my senior year, half of my senior year, I was living by myself. I had a job in the whole bit. Because by the time I was in the co-op program at Judson, which is where you go to school half a day and work half a day. So, I grew up in a single parent home. And so there was the opportunity for me to help out. And so by my senior year, I had to put sports aside and help out, and so a lot of lessons learned there. But from when I graduated, I was like, I'm just going to work. That's all I want to do. I don't want to go to school. And then my grandmother got a hold of me, and she put that loving on me, and like, you'll be the first person to go to college, and so many people have sacrificed before you for you to be able to go. And I love my grandma, so there was no doubt about it. All right, let's go to school.
Yeah.
So I was going to school. I was in the ROTC program. I was on the Ranger Corps, which is like kind of like I don't know, not pat myself on the back, but it's like the varsity ROTC or whatnot that goes to competitions. But I was working at the same time. And so I literally was like getting up at 3:30 in the morning. I lived out by Judson still, driving all the way over to UTSA. And I didn't leave there till 4:45. And I would leave and jump into my Coke uniform and was headed off to work. And so I wasn't getting home till like 11. And I tried to keep up with that pace. And then eventually my grades were just like down and out. So I ended up dropping out, honestly, and joined the military. And then, from that, married, kids, came back to San Antonio. And then that's when I, became serious about going back to school. Once I decided I knew I wanted to coach. And there's a story maybe later on, these questions we'll get to, but kind of led me back to wanting to get my degree in education and be able to coach.
So how long from the time you graduated high school to when you became a teacher, how long was that?
I graduated at 17 years old, and I probably wasn't coaching, so I was early 30s.
So I
started really late.
Yeah, you definitely did start really late. So you were kind of working that military corporate kind of life. So then at one point, I guess you decided to go back to school and start taking night classes, or what?
Funny story. So this is how it happened. Over here at Rolling Oaks Mall, they used to have the round ball ruckus.
Yep.
Okay.
Played in that.
All right. Me too. When I was younger, right? But at this time I was 2 kids, married, the whole bit. But I was going up there not to participate, but more to, show some support. There was some friends of the family rather, that their sons were playing in it. And we all went to the same church as well. We were married at their house. I mean, they're really close friends and whatnot. And so I was just going there to support them and good job. And then just loving sports. I'm watching the game and I'm noticing things. I'm like, man, if that guy he's screened here. They need to move that guy. He's a better defender. He needs to do this. And I kind of talked to myself and I'd whisper to my wife, he needs to really be guarding him. And someone said, why don't you go tell him? And I was like, well, that's not my place. No, you go tell him. So I'm over there, all right, you can do this. And then hey, let me give you a play while we're going. If you'll just do this. And next thing I know, I'm coaching up this team, right? And so at the end of the day, they end up winning like the whole thing, which was cool for their age bracket. So we're on our way home and my wife's like, yeah, you probably need to quit. I was like, what do you mean? She said, you should have saw yourself when you were coaching those kids. Like, it was genuine enthusiasm and love for those kids and what you were doing. And like, I don't see you come home that way from the work that you're doing. Like, I know that you're not like miserable coming home, but you're not like that. And so literally probably a month after that, I started looking at how to go to school. And so I ended up putting in my 2 weeks at HDB. I was a manager in the front end. And man, I worked at a bar on the side. I worked for my brother's tile company. I had all these odd jobs while I was going to school. And so I was going 19 hours in a semester. I got started from ground zero because I wasn't able to transfer my credits from the military. I got my associates in a year and a half, and I took a small break in between. And then I was at UTSA. I went to San Antonio College.
Okay.
And then from there, I transferred over to UTSA. And then once I got into, I'm teaching here at Steele High School, and it's been going on, 9 years. Eventually, I went back and got my master's through Lamar University online. So there it is.
So that kind of brings up a question, too. So you've been here at Steele. This is your 9th year? Or is this the start of your 10th year?
This is the start of my 10th, I think. I always get mixed up. Like, I got here in 2012, but I want to say it's 2012, 13. So
okay.
Wherever that puts me.
Okay, I got you. So you're 8, 9, somewhere around there. 8,
Yeah.
I got you. All right. So was there any kind of in the process of your either high school or college years that there was just kind of like an impactful moment that you can look back on now? Because it sounds like you didn't really have your mind made up that you wanted to be a teacher until your wife kind of brought it to your attention and gave you this vision and foresight into where you are now. But looking back now, do you think there were maybe any kind of pivotal moments, whether it was a teacher or a coach, that kind of shaped you, molded you, impacted you to the point where you can look back and reflect now and you're kind of like, emulating that as a teacher and a coach now? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, I mean, just thinking back as far as becoming a teacher, I always knew I wanted to help people. I just didn't know at what capacity. So when I joined the military, I was a combat medic and a laboratory specialist. So I knew I wanted to help people, just didn't know how. I mean, necessarily what avenue I wanted to do that. And so, you know, as far as going back to what teacher had the most impact, I have kind of a weird one that, like, I've had a couple of bad experiences where I was like, if I ever had the opportunity to impact a kid's life, I won't ever do that. I won't ever do that. And not to say that every teacher was bad, you know, but I've had those pivotal moments where I was like, man, I really feel like this person should be helping me. And I felt like they had an opportunity and there was a missed opportunity. And you know, and that's in life too, right? You learn the good and the bad. And so, you know, some of that, you know, impacted me as far as a mentor or somebody that Coach Robinson was one from Garner Middle School. He was coach. But it was the first time that I probably realized that teachers and coaches were people. Like, they were real people. Like, he would have conversations with me and you know, almost like as if I was a son, you know what I mean? Or, you know, like somebody was helping out, like I was a real person. And so I think that was like, man, that had an impact on me, that that's a real person and they cared about me.
I got you. So, I mean, what I'm hearing from you too, though, is that, you know, when you've got these teachers, you've got these coaches or people in your life, and they unfortunately sometimes, you know, do the wrong thing. There's always a lesson to be learned in those situations that you can take away. So it's just as impactful as someone who's doing the right thing all the time. You know, it's kind of a stretch here when I say this, but in my class, when I ask questions, and you know me, I love asking questions, right? Like, I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask you and ask you and ask you and ask you. But the purpose is to get you to process what I'm asking you and come up with your own answers, your own solutions. But in my classroom, I always emphasize this, especially in basketball too. I love wrong answers. And like, when you look at the kids' faces, sometimes when I say that, they're like, what do you mean? Like, no, I love wrong answers, because in healthcare, you know, you work with a nurse, you work with a doctor, a physician, a therapist, or whatever, and everybody's trying to come up with a solution to take care of this patient, to get them out and discharged out of the hospital. That everyone has a wrong answer, but through that, what you call differential diagnosis, you come up with the right answer. And so sometimes, you know, you got to learn through those wrong answers. You got to learn from those people that don't necessarily know how to teach the right way or reach kids and stuff like that. So, you know, I think there's and even in my own professional experience here at Steele, I've learned through some people, unfortunately, like coaches or teachers or whatever, you learn what not to do. But hopefully we have the vision to see what's right in front of us and not make those same mistakes. All right. So next question, going kind of a little deeper here. Just a simple question here. I say simple question. It's a complex question, but it's simple. Why do you teach?
I'll say it goes back to, you know, me first saying, like, I knew that I always wanted to help at some capacity, just didn't know, you know, the avenue. And so I love working with young people, man. I love working with young people. I love to think about where a kid starts at the beginning of the year and then where they end up at the end of the year. And I'd be a liar, and I'm gonna say that some teachers are too, that if there isn't some intrinsic motivation of like, I had something to do with that. Like, I had something to do with that. And so I love being able to be a tool, a resource to anyone, but it is in the teaching field, like to young people, to give them a nugget, do something that impacts their lives so that later on they can fall back on that. And when they get to a point in their life where they have to make a decision, that hopefully I have given them great advice, good advice, some advice, that they're able to discern and make a good decision for themselves, maybe even for their family.
I like the visual right there. You got, you know, the tools and resources, and you think about it in education, every one of us is doing our part to affect one student. You know, we've got multiple teachers that share the same student, and we don't even know it, right? But, you know, the things that we say and the things that we do in our classrooms are shaping that kid, and they're absorbing everything as a sponge. And so they're taking a little bit of, you know, from each one of us. And it kind of gave me the visual of a tool belt, right? You got your hammer, you got your tape measure, you got your wrench, you got your screwdriver, you got all these different tools. And I think that's a good analogy of what we are as teachers, because, you know, and that's why I do this podcast too, is so that people understand that where we're coming from, how we were brought up and what our reasons, or what's our why we teach, is to ultimately affect kids. And so we each play a significant role in that, whether it's minor or major. We all kind of shape our students. So I like that visual. But anything else to add to that?
Man, think about it. I mean, I think everybody, even when I talk about having the satisfaction of seeing someone do well, it just, at some point, you're not only feeling, not necessarily a void, but being a part of the puzzle for a kid, like it also impacts you.
Yep.
And so it makes me think of the times that, the opportunities that I have every single day that I cross somebody's path, that I have an opportunity to make an impact. And so as much as I talk to them, I learn some things when they talk to me. And so they often can be that puzzle piece for me as well.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. Because I think if we think of teaching as a one-way street, whether it's content or whether it's relationship building or whatever, it's not us to them. It's also them to us, and if you're not learning from your students, then I'm going to challenge the listener to rethink that idea and that philosophy that we can't learn from these kids. Because sometimes those lessons that the kids teach us, man, they make us better teachers, right? They make us better people. I wrote a letter of recommendation for a student, and I put it in there that having that student made me a better person. You know what I'm saying? So, and when you have a student like that, it's a two-way street. I often tell kids this all the time in my class. I'm like, listen, and I even say this on the first day of school, we're all human, right? I may be a teacher, you may be a student, but I'm a human, you're a human. Like we're equal. How can we work together to make this relationship work from teacher to student and student to teacher? So the next question I have for you is, you kind of told me why you teach, but what is your definition of success in your classroom? How does Jay know that he is impacting or is successful in his classroom?
Here's the crazy thing, and I think many teachers will attest to this. Like, oftentimes you don't know. You don't know until you see that kid many years from now, married in with a family. And then they come back and tell you, like, at this moment, or when you said this, you maybe didn't know that you had that impact that certain day that you said something. But going back to what a success looked like, being better at the end than where you started, whatever that looks like. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're better with conjugating verbs or, my content in the classroom. Because I'll be honest with you, are you a better person from day one to the last day of school? Are you better in some aspect? And if I had something to do with that, that's success. And along the way, we're going to learn about some adverbs and things of that nature. But are you a better person? Are you more prepared? And I think that's our job as teachers. Is that kid more prepared from when they started to the finish line, or even moving on to the next level or whatnot? And then just scaffolding from when you get a kid to sending them on to the next level.
Yep. So you're looking for that. You're looking for that growth piece.
Yes.
That growth can be academics, or that growth can be life. But when you get to visualize, that's why I love, when I used to coach freshmen, which I know you do, but as a basketball coach on the court, to me, I think if you look at the growth of a freshman from beginning to end, sophomore from beginning to end, I think as freshmen, you see the significant amount of growth.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's just a wonderful thing and it's different for every kid and it's different for every team. But as a coach or as a teacher, when you can see the varying degrees of growth in all your students, definitely I can see where that can be an area of success as a teacher. So, and I think you and I share the same answer when it comes to success, because to me, my definition of success is I won't know if I'm successful as a teacher until after they've completed walking the halls of this high school and they come back and they say, thank you. Because you don't know what kind of impact you're having unless you're just blessed and fortunate to have a kid who tells you directly.
Yeah.
But not a lot of 17, 18-year-old kids are going to, directly articulate how impactful you are to them. So those are those moments where we get edified and built up and we feel like we're in the right profession and we've definitely, answered the calling, if you will. Who is a teacher that you will always remember, and what about them made them so special?
You talking about colleague-wise or just my teacher?
No, your actual teachers. So like
Okay.
K through 12 or even collegiate, just someone that kind of shaped you.
My grandmother. I told you she was
Okay.
my Head Start teacher. Crazy enough, like when I would go back to school in Carson City, there are so many people there that were like, your grandmother was my teacher. Your grandmother was my teacher. Even my teachers were like, your grandmother wasn't my teacher. And so, the lessons didn't start at 8 and end at 4. There was a time period where I stayed there. So it was, from morning till going to bed. And so she gave it to me raw and authentic, you know what I mean? But she gave it to me with love. And so she had a great impact because I also got to see her not only work with me, but work with other students. And she loved everybody the same. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like extra love for me. And, there was another kid. It was like whoever needed her love the most and it was in front of her was going to get that. And so she had a great impact on me because, she tied in life lessons. She was always talking spiritually. And so I was getting lessons at every angle, from ABCs and 1, 2, 3s to, how to pray, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So she had.
Are there any other educators in your family?
Let me think. No. I know somebody that's like, they finished up in the military and they're doing some training stuff, but not like true, in the sense of traditional teaching. No, just my grandmother.
I got you. That's awesome, man. So here, without mentioning any kids' names or anything like that, so we can protect the privacy of the kid here, but in your 9, 8, whatever, how many years you've been here, hopefully you'll calculate that and get back to me so I can properly write that down. But if you can, share a story or a pivotal moment in your educational career so far, since working here at Steele, where that you'll never forget, and that could be on the field, on the court, since you coach 2 sports, or that can be in the classroom where you've just kind of had a student that you've mentored or you've been with and you've kind of seen the process through, but just kind of share a pivotal moment or a story where you kind of had an impact on a kid, or just you'll just never forget that story.
Man, in all honesty, without like sounding, arrogant, I've had lots of moments that kind of, throughout the years have put me back on track and given me, this is why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I can go back as far as last week and give you a story. Crazy enough. And here's a simple moment that I didn't take for a pivotal moment, but then it like put me back on track to be like, not just be careful in what you say, but recognizing the opportunities to have an impact. And so we were at our football game at the lower levels, and a kid's walking behind me and, asked me, hey, coach, I made a good play. Are you proud of me? And I was just like, yeah, man, I'm proud. Like, you're doing it. And he really was doing a good job. And I was like, man, you're doing a really good job. I'm really proud of you. And so I'm walking down the field, and some of the other kids catch up with him, and it like broke my heart a little bit. So he's talking to the other kids behind me. He doesn't know that I can hear him. He's like, hey, man, coach just told me he's really proud of me. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, man, I've never even heard that from my dad. And so the other kids were like, oh, hey, man, like, it's a little too much. I don't know what to say to you. And so I was just like in my head, just thinking, going back to when we're talking about when I thought there were some opportunities missed for me, and I've been in that situation that he is. And like, man, I remember I said I wouldn't do that thing and be better. And I thought that I was good in that moment, but it just kind of galvanized or confirmed again the impact that I could have and the positive impact that I could have, and understanding that you don't know what these kids are going through when they're not here. You don't know. And I think, not to sound like a negative nanny or nothing like that, but like, I think sometimes we miss opportunities, or we blind ourselves with thinking, these kids go home to the perfect lives and, 2 great loving parents and, abundance of food in the cabinets and unlimited resources and technology. And they don't all have that. There's quite a few that don't have that. And so you have the opportunity to wear different hats, the counselor, the friend, all those things. And so being those things and being human to them, you have a lot more opportunities to have those type of moments, and something so small. Yes, I'm proud of you. That wasn't like biblical. That wasn't, I had to go look up the greatest motivational speeches ever. That was, yes, I'm proud of you. And he'll never forget it. But if he does, I know I'll never forget it. So.
Yeah. So being true and authentic to yourself, and when you give kids praise and positive reinforcement, you don't know the impact that it's having on them, especially with, the day they just had or the night that they just had experiencing God knows what. You never know when you have those impacts on kids. And, whether that's in your personal life or professional life or coaching life, I can't pinpoint this, Jay, but there was a point in my life, within the last probably 5 years, where I just made a personal kind of reflection statement to myself that I don't want to pass up any opportunity to give praise to a kid when it's deserved. But that's here. But I'm also doing that same thing in my own personal life with my marriage. And, we have these thoughts in our heads where we want to tell someone thank you, or just passing a compliment, and so I just kind of made this a mission of mine that when I see something, say something. Right. If there's recognition that needs to be said, then I do it. And so, like, you reminded me of a situation where we had one of our basketball players just recently, and I gave a compliment, and I gave praise, and I gave positive reinforcement. And it's from a kid that probably gets a lot of criticism from me for my expectations of this kid. And because we know the potential of kids, and when they're not bringing that, sometimes we have to criticize. And sometimes the kids put the tail between their legs and they sulk or whatever. And some kids flip it and they're like, I'm going to prove you wrong, coach. And they do something about it. And just to see that look on that kid's face when I complimented him on just how fantastic he's playing right now and being aggressive and this and that, just the eyes were just like you talking,
yeah.
You're talking to me? Like, I don't normally hear this. But going back to what I first said, you have to be authentic. Because kids can see the transparency of you just fluffing it up and lying to them. And you know what I'm saying? Like, no. So I'm going to be real. And I'm glad you said that, because take those opportunities in the classroom, take those opportunities in coaching, Can
I add one thing on there?
Yeah.
And now you just talked about it. And it's like, to be able to be in a position to criticize, to be in a position to want to correct, you have had to put something forth and deposited something in that kid to be able to now, when you got to hold them accountable for something, you've invested something in them to be able to do that. Because if you're always a criticizer and you don't build, if you don't build, you're taking away what they don't have. So you got to build them. And so I definitely, you have to praise. And as coaches, it's difficult sometimes because we always want to create the perfect. And so we criticize a lot. And so we have to mix in the praise, but again, it has to be authentic praise.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me of the whole ATM thing, right? Like you cannot withdraw from kids until you've made deposits into their lives. Because you can't hold them accountable until you've actually just showed them that you care about them, that you love them. But if all you're doing is withdrawing, those kids are tuning you out completely, to matter what you have to tell them. So we've got to make our deposits into our athletes, and we've got to make deposits into these students so they know that we care. All right, Jay, my next question for you deals with like relationships. And I would just like to ask you is, do you think that relationships should be at the center of teaching? And if so, how do you specifically keep relationships at the center of teaching in your classroom?
To answer your first question, yes. It can often, there's going to be some kids that are just motivated to do whatever you ask them to do because of whatever reason, right?
Right.
They're ready to learn, they're ready to do. But generally, you have to build a relationship to be able to teach, to have kids listen to you, buy into what you're saying. Same thing goes as an adult. Like, if I know this person, I tend to give them an ear a little bit longer because I know them, and I'll listen to them a little bit longer. But it's hard sometimes when there's no investment, as far as relationship wise. And what was the second part? I'm sorry. It was
what do you specifically do in your classroom to maintain and build those relationships in your classroom?
Okay. So one of the things is I'm real big on, as soon as you walk through my door, take off your earphones. All right. And the reason I said that is because I try to generally speak to everyone as they walked in my door. Hey, hello, hey, what's going on? I try to take the time out to recognize if someone comes in a little different that day, all right? I'm usually joking around. Anybody that knows me, that that's my style. But having conversations, allowing myself to err and be human in front of kids, and listening to the conversations, having conversations with them. I tend to teach a lot of when I'm teaching a style or I'm teaching something, somehow I try to bring in a practical application in like life and like girlfriend, boyfriends, or whatever is, rumors or whatever's hot in high school or whatever. But I try to bring it back to that when I can. If I'm talking about characterizations, I'm like, what would you do in that situation? So then I try to come up with a situation that happens in school. What would you have done? Well, that's similar to this character. And so, again, going back to authentic, right? But having those conversations and listening, truly not just, hey, good morning, and they go by and you didn't notice anything about them, right? And it's like, hey, good morning, hey, a new backpack, new shoes. Because when you can tell a kid something like that, it's something small as that, they're like, they really notice me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You said a key word there, recognize. And I don't know if you were with us or not, but it was years ago. Bobby Knight was doing a TABC clinic or whatever for basketball coaches. And Bobby Knight was doing this whole presentation on a one word, recognize. And I won't digress into that, but simply when you said the word recognize, looking at those kids when they walk into your room is critical. Whether you're at your desk and you glance, or whether you're at the door and you're high-fiving them or fist pumping or whatever it is that your routine is with those kids, the bottom line is you should recognize those kids when they walk into your door, because those times in those situations where the kid walks into the classroom and maybe they're shedding a tear, or maybe they're looking at their feet when normally they're the ones that are greeting you before you have a chance to greet them. You have to recognize who's walking in your door. You have to recognize not only who is walking into your door, but which personality, if you will, of that student is walking into your door. And to me, and I say this all the time, if you don't recognize that, then all you care about is your content for the day. But if you've got this kid, and I know you probably have students like this, and I'm looking in my classroom right now, and I know exactly where the student sits, like, I have to pay attention to that student when they walk into my classroom every single day, because I know the burdens that they're carrying. And if that person's not right and they don't give me that eye contact, I know they're not going to probably listen today. I know they're probably going to be on their phone trying to do something else to communicate to whatever people that they've got to communicate to get their life in order. And then sometimes I think if we don't recognize those students, then we just see the student who's not paying attention to us. And so we take offense to that. But there's always a story behind that kid. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the story was about a kid in elementary that got caught stealing food in the cafeteria. And the teacher wanted the kid written up. And so they monitored this kid, and sure enough, the next day, the kid did it again, was stealing food when the cafeteria people were looking away, and they'd take an extra juice, they'd take an extra food item or something like that, right? But they followed the kid without the kid knowing. And the parent, somehow, I don't know, I can't give you the details of the story, but essentially the kid was walking around the corner and giving the food to his or her mom because they had a little baby and they couldn't afford food. And it's like, so some teachers, in the context of teaching high school, we look at the kid on their phone and we want to write a referral. We see the kid sleeping in class, we get mad and get offensive, and we want to write a referral, or get out of my classroom, go sit outside, or go to the teacher's gallery. And I think oftentimes teachers think that by doing that they're going to come back in a renewed spirit. Like they're not going to change their behavior, but it's your job as an educator, in my opinion. It's our job as educators to get to know the student, know their story, know their background, so that when we do have to teach content, they're willing to listen to us, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Totally agree. And not to say that I've been on the good side of that all the time. I have been to where I've had a bad day because I'm human. Yep. And then I get on a kid and then I find out something and then I feel terrible because then they open up to me and I'm like, oh, my bad. I didn't know that. And then I had to, check myself and be like, well, I wish they had told me. Well, they didn't have to tell me.
Right.
And why would they tell me if I was
Right.
responding that way?
Absolutely.
I was kicking them when they were down. So, I definitely agree with the referral, man. Is there a time for it? Yes. But there's also a time to figure out what's going on before you get to that point.
Yep.
And again, that's about that whole investment thing. Treating kids with respect. Because sometimes I think, we get in the classroom, we think I'm the teacher, put the crown on, and like, this is my land and this is my country.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, but we share this space. We share this energy. And so we have to be cognizant of they are people too. They're younger people is all they are. They're younger.
They're human.
People. Yes. And so they have things going on. And I think I wouldn't be able to connect as much if I hadn't lived the life that I live. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast. But just, knowing the things that I've gone through, I tend to be more understanding at times when I see somebody going through something. And then I'm also on the other end of it too. I'm a little strict because I feel like I'm in that situation. I've been in that situation and I know what you need, or at least I feel like I know. And I'm like, you've got to get it together. You got to start, and so I've been on both sides of that. And hopefully by the end of the day, pray before I come in and hopefully I say the right things and make the right, connections with kids. But you try your best. And you just got to know that some days it's not going to end the way you wanted it, but you have, the next opportunity that's there for you. Like we teach in football, it's all about the next play. The next time you see them, there's nothing wrong with going back and touching upon that. You know what I mean? Like, hey, yesterday we had this conversation, kind of went left. Is there something going on? Like, I don't know. Because, and is there anything I can do to help you? And sometimes the kids are going to say, no. But I guarantee you it means something to them. And then I will have that kid come back at some point and open up with me or talk to me. And sometimes that's in the hallway because they don't want to do it in front of their friends, in front of the whole class.
Right.
And so then I get an insight to what's going on. And then, I got them hooked and they got me hooked,
That's right. That's right. And you mentioned it earlier. You said this. You said that it's okay to err.
Yeah.
Right. Because we're human and we make mistakes. But when we model that transparency that, guys, I'm sorry, I'm wrong in this situation. They're like, oh, okay. And then so, later in life, you'll never know it. But that's a teachable moment where they're okay with also being wrong.
Yeah.
But you have to be able, and then you got to laugh it off. Right. I mean, because we make
you
mistakes
can't laugh
all
at
the time.
yourself.
Yeah. So I'm curious, this question is not on my list, but I know you just said you finished your master's, right? And I think it's just so critical to, the purpose behind the podcast, to get to know each other and give the faculty an opportunity to meet people that they wouldn't normally, under normal circumstances, sit down and have a conversation with you, Jay. There's teachers here on campus that don't know us by name, and they don't know our story. So number one, again, thank you for being on here. But since you just went through your master's, I'm curious to know, honestly, did you ever have any training on relationship building in the classroom for educators?
This is a tough one, right? Because I would say this. First of all, it was online. So it's hard to, no. Very little.
I can put it to you another way. Was there a textbook that you took a class in relationship building, relationship-centered learning, anything that dealt with relationships?
And so I say this. Yes, there was some academic stuff that talked about that, but like ask any teacher, when you first start, you feel like, what did I just do these last 4 years to get my bachelor's? They did not teach me this.
Yeah.
And so, there's some perfect scenario stuff in the book, but no, nothing like hands-on being in it. I think you learn that from life. And you take those life experiences, those affordances as growing up. And then when it's like everything happens for a reason. And so when you're like, well, why did that thing happen to me? Because you didn't know 20 years from now, you were going to meet a kid that needed help with that thing. And that's why you were going to be strong enough to handle it. And so he used you for that moment. And so I think a lot of the things that we do within the class, the reason that they can be authentic is because they are authentic. It's not like I trained for this moment because of this particular book and this chapter that allowed me to do that. Now, there's some formal stuff and structure within your lessons that you can do, but when they're the real moments, it is what it is. Like, you just got to live in the moment.
I think, I just feel like there needs to be like a paradigm shift, in my opinion. I think you're exactly right. I think through our life journey, our stories, our testimonies, we're able to reach kids, and you've said it, your why and your purpose, and I've shared on this podcast why I teach, and other teachers have done the same. And it's always about the kids. It's always about relationships, and I think it's just innate in us. But Jay, I mean, we can't live in this perfect world where we think all educators think alike, because there's educators out there that I hate to say it, but they don't care about kids. They don't care other than maybe what they're teaching. And when that bell rings, they go home, and they don't take anything with them at home. So we're painting a beautiful canvas of what education should look like, and we should care about kids and whatnot. But I go back to thinking, and I don't have a master's in education, and I don't even have a degree in education. I went through alternative certification, but I just don't hear about people talking about, maybe there's a chapter, maybe there's a section within the chapter that talks about, how can you develop relationships with kids? But there's no course. There's no. It's not intentional and purposeful. It's like a snippet in a class, right? But anyway. So my next question for you, man, here, we're going to wrap things up here, is I always like to finish my podcast with giving teachers the opportunity to thank other teachers, because we can't do this alone. We can't do this job alone. And we need others in our corners that support us, that help us, that make us better, men, or better educators, or in your case, maybe potentially down the road, a better administrator, a better coach. Is there somebody on campus here that you would like to thank, and why?
And there's a whole list of people, right? And then you don't want to leave anybody off, because
you got to give me one though.
Yeah, I got to cross the path later and be like, hey man, sorry, you're number 3. You're number 3. Man, it'd be hard for me to get away from this one, and I know my boys are going to get on me about this, but I have support in my room, and Miss Hackman makes my life so much easier, man. There are times that, my mood, or whether it be football or whatever's going on, and I'm in here teaching, and then there's just moments where it's like I'm getting a little rough around the edges, and so the football coach makes it into the classroom, and she'll do like my mom, like give me that look, like, and I'm like, okay, all right, I could have said that better. And she just laughs, like, you're doing all right. Like, I feel like she's managing me like I'm one of the students. And so, man, she helps me all the time. But I tell you what, man, there are a host of people on this campus, and I wish I could get all their names, that help me out all the time. I might get in trouble. I call them work wives, all right, that I get help all the time, instilling ideas, sharing ideas. This is a great place to be. I really feel like I could go into anybody's room and ask a genuine question of help, and somebody would try to or lead me in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, I think that there's a lot of people on this campus that would agree with what you just said there. And I think that's what makes this place such a good place, is that we're all eager to help each other. And I think that really starts with administration down. They kind of set the tone, and the culture here, for the most part, I mean, in my opinion, is pretty darn good. And we're all eager to help each other. But like I said before, we can't do this alone. So Ms. Hackman, hopefully you're listening to this, and you hear your shout out. But, I've had interactions with her before, and I don't know if I've ever seen a sad face or a stern face. She always seems to be super positive and is always smiling. So she's an awesome person for sure. But Jay, man, I appreciate you taking the time during the work week to kind of visit with me, man. And I hope you have a blessed day, man.
All right, you as well, man.
All right. Thank you for listening to Keeping Up with the Knights. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure you subscribe and click the notification button so you know when the next episode is released, and then share it with your friends and colleagues. If you're so inclined to do so, would you please rate and review this podcast to help me grow our community of listeners? I hope there was something that you heard today that allowed you to connect outside the classroom. Now, more than ever, we need each other as a support system, and we need to continue to make this the best high school in the state of Texas. Thank you, Knight Nation. Now, go be someone's champion today.